Welcome to Monday Night Horse Center. Um, I'm glad to introduce. I'm sure you've seen her at the track. Former jockey. She does stuff with Canterbury. She does stuff with 2-year-old sales. Betty Jo Goodwin.
Thanks for having me, Sean, and I'm excited to be a future host on horse racing today. I'm super excited to introduce to you Lindy Wade, which he has been on the show before, right? Correct, Lindy?
Correct. Yeah, I was on here, I think it was 2 years ago, back in 2021.
Okay, but a lot has changed since 2021, right?
Yeah, things have definitely changed. I would say things aren't the same as they were then. I'd
Yeah, a
agree.
lot has happened with your racing career and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, things have, it's crazy to say. I mean, I was riding in Minnesota in 2021 back whenever I was last interviewed, and yeah, lots has changed since then. I hope we can kind of get into some of that in this interview. That'd
Yeah.
be awesome.
Yeah, so if anybody's on that hasn't seen the interview before, we'll probably just start back from the beginning. So, kind of where you're from, where you started. Your career started in 2007, correct? You had the bug,
Yes,
and
2007.
yeah,
Yes, correct. I
so
started in Louisiana back in 2007, before shifting my tack to Chicago, after about 4 years, or excuse me, 4 months of riding there in Louisiana Downs. Um, yeah, born and raised there in North Louisiana, and grew up there and just kind of took a liking to the game, and started my career there, and then shifted to Chicago shortly after, and seemed like from that point my career kind of set sail.
okay. You said that your parents were in the business, and that's how you kind of started getting into it, but not until you graduated high school in your previous interview, right?
Correct. So my parents actually grew up on the racetrack, at Louisiana Downs. My mom, she rode races back in the 80s in South Louisiana at Jefferson Downs. And then once she had me, she was a groom. And she groomed for a lot of the big trainers there in Louisiana between Al Stahl, Brett Calhoun. Back then, Bobby Frankel was a big name in Louisiana, and he had horses for John Franks. And my mom, she was lucky enough to groom a lot of their stakes horses back then. So a lot of people knew me. Before I started riding, I was really kind of a household name there at Louisiana Downs. So once I did start riding, I really had an advantage, I felt like, because they just gave me opportunity after opportunity, that I feel like if I wouldn't have grown up in that area, I may not have received.
Right. They kind of say that in Louisiana, the jockeys and trainers, they kind of stick to themselves like those home guys. They really get perceived as, um, just sticking with those trainers. Is that kind of the way it is in Louisiana? Or would you say it's the same everywhere or hard to break into Louisiana?
I think it definitely helps when you have it's almost like a home field advantage, starting there and growing up there, people knew, who I was and things like that. They knew my family, and I think that goes a long ways in Louisiana. They're kind of down home, like let's help our people out type individuals. So they really leaned on that, and I mean, I was fortunate enough that they really gave me those opportunities. I mean, as an apprentice, I mean, you would know, Betty. I mean, a lot of times you start out and you're just hustling just to ride races, and me, I started out with top notch opportunities, between Al Stahl, um, and Calhoun, even, just great people to ride for as a journeyman, and I was getting the opportunity as an apprentice, and it goes the same with my agent. I started out with Ronald Ardwin in Louisiana, and I mean, in my opinion, one of the best agents I've ever had. I mean, and I got to start with him, so it was I was fortunate when I first started out. I had a lot of backing, a lot of support. So that
Yeah.
was it was really nice to have, so to say, home field advantage.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you said from there you transferred to Chicago and you were there for a few years. And then you ended up at Remington, Sam Houston, kind of that area?
Yeah, so after 4 months of riding in Louisiana, I wanted to kind of spread my wings a little bit. I had got polished enough that I felt I could move on. I mean, the season was going pretty well. I mean, I think I ended up winning as an apprentice in Louisiana. I think I won 27 races in the first 4 months, which isn't bad for just starting.
Yeah.
And then I had an opportunity with a really good agent in Chicago named Jay Fedor, and he
Oh,
had
yeah.
Chris Amy at the time, and him and Chris were really rolling. And um, when I spoke with him, he was basically looking for a second rider, and I had my apprenticeship still, and that was going to be a big selling point. So, I mean, we linked up and really took off because he had the backing. He had the
Right.
business. He just needed
Mhm.
someone to kind of fill that void.
Yeah.
Um, and I was there for 4 years and had a lot of success in Chicago. But what it really boiled down to is that really wasn't really my way of life. I mean, it's a little different up there in my opinion. I'm more of kind of a Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma, low and slow type individual. So I really kind of thrive off of that, I feel like. So I moved my tack back south between Sam Houston, Lone Star, and Remington, and I had success, right off the bat, and I decided to stick around.
Yeah, so you had said in your previous interview, like you kind of were a household name and it was kind of getting a little old, and that's why you kind of looked for somewhere new like Canterbury. How did you make a decision like Minnesota, Canterbury, and then you end up there in 2021, right? And going into that season, Rye Eccleberry is projected to be leading rider again. Like there was articles coming out like Rye Eccleberry is heavy favorite for leading rider 2021 this season. And then Lindey shows up, and Rye's a great rider. But I think you win 80 races that year and he win like
62.
48,
I think it
6.
was. I thought it
Okay.
was 62.
Like
Yeah,
it was
I
something
thought it
like
was
that.
six.
So like you kind of blew him out of the water and you just showed up on the scene. So how did that like play out? What does that look like?
Oh, that was a whirlwind. I'll put it to you that way. So I started out at Sam Houston in the year of 2021, and obviously the the general game plan is to go on to Lone Star and then to Remington from there. Um, but that kind of changed late in the Sam Houston meet. I decided like I was like I said in the prior interview, I was household name and people knew who I was, and I was just there. I didn't really stand out anymore, and I wanted to go somewhere where I could stand out again. And I thought changing it up a little bit would make that happen. And I got lucky, with having the season that I had in 2021. And I mean, I have to credit a lot of it to Robertino Diodoro and his backing. I mean, we had a tremendous meet together, and that was actually the first time I had ever really ridden for him. Um, but as you guys know, whenever you have success for one person, a lot of others follow. So, I mean, I think that with his support, I mean, from day one, I won my first race for him on opening day. I mean, and that opened a lot of eyes. Um, and it just kind of rolled from there. I mean, that was an incredible meet. I mean, in my opinion, to win 80 races in less than 4 months is pretty incredible. That's the best I've ever done. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I was trying to look to see if anybody had win more than 80, and I couldn't find any stats saying that. So it's a pretty big deal. From that summer, you headed to Phoenix, right? And you were in Phoenix for that winter, so 2021 to 2022.
Yes, so I went to Phoenix. So I actually, right after the season in Minnesota, I decided I was coming here to Remington and was gonna test the waters and things like that and see if I could get back on this circuit. Until Canterbury started back. In the following summer. Well, when I got here, my back was kind of against the wall, and I was kind of looking for something to challenge me. And I knew that Phoenix was a really good track. I mean, it was because they'd already started probably a month prior. So I was almost like I was walking in at a bad time, you know. So I really didn't have a whole lot of success. I think in the first month that I was here, I won 5 races. I went 5 for like 65 or 70, something like that, which isn't terrible, but you know, I felt like I could have more, you know. So I spoke with the agent that I had in Minnesota, Chad Anderson, and he's a household name there in Arizona at Turf Paradise, and we spoke about me joining him over there, and things fell together and went really well. And I started off really well. I think I was leading rider from the beginning of the meet until the middle of January when I was injured. So I had a little bit of a setback and took some time off following that. But I really enjoyed my move over there because I'm always about kind of testing the waters and trying new places, you know, and places I've never been before. So that was a really good experience.
Yeah. Then from there, you came back to Minnesota. So now you're back in Minnesota, and you ended up third leading rider that 2022, right? So you're third leading rider at Canterbury. Another great summer, like nothing, you know, Harry Hernandez was leading rider that year, right? Harry
Correct.
Hernandez was like kind of the new face, and he was leading rider, and you were third,
Correct. I think it
right?
was Harry, then it was Ruben, and then myself.
Fuentes,
Uh,
and then
and
okay,
then
yeah.
myself, yeah. So I think I struggled a little bit coming back because that was once I had my injury in middle of January. It took a little while for my it was a hand injury, and it took a little while for my hand to heal. You know, so once it healed, then I got to return. But you know, it takes a little time to get your fitness back, to get your timing back. It takes a little time to get those things back. So it took me a couple of weeks to get that back and get the ball rolling again. And Minnesota was my first summer back, or my first season back from my injury. So I would say it was a good meet. It was solid. You know, I didn't go into it with as much confidence as I did back in 2021. But by
Hmm.
the time it ended, I was as confident as I was, you know, when I entered there in 2021.
Okay. And then from that 22 summer at Canterbury, you went back to Phoenix. You were doing well. And didn't you suffer another injury in Phoenix? Or that was
No,
leading up
that was when I decided to
to
step
take
away from riding, to take.
a retirement, like a mental break, right?
Correct. Correct.
Now,
Yes.
can you
So
tell us a little bit about, because I know a lot of people, a lot of riders kind of in this day and age, mentally it's exhausting. Can you tell us like how maybe that was affecting you and you just needed kind of a reset and you know, where did you end up? What were you doing? What does retirement look like for 5 months?
okay. So it was about the end of November, 2022, and my business was. I can't say it was suffering, but I was in a position to where I didn't have a lot. You know, things were kind of moving in a different direction. I was okay with it, but I was thinking, you know, I've always wanted to, not always, but probably the last 3 or 4 years, I've been interested in finding out what what the way I say it, what the real world is about. So to me, there's horse racing world, and then there's the real world. So
Amen.
finding out what the real world was about to me was something I wanted to do. So I decided that I said retire. In hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have used that word. I wish I would have said I was taking a break. But either way, I stepped aside, and I knew from riding in on this circuit between Houston, Dallas, and Remington that I really liked North Texas. So my first move was to go to the place that I wanted to be, which was North Texas. So I moved to North Texas, and then I started the hunt for a job in the real world. You know, I had experienced a lot of sides of horse racing, and just wanted to try something different. You know, just nothing associated with horses or anything like that. So I did that. I actually got a job as a plumber for 4 months. So I started pretty much on the bottom as an apprentice. It's funny, I started on the bottom as an apprentice jockey, and then I was starting over as an apprentice plumber. And I did that for 4 months. And that was a really humbling and good experience because, not knowing much about plumbing, just knowing how to work with my hands. There was a lot of learning involved, and a lot of learning from people that were younger than me, because a lot of times when you're an apprentice, you start out young, and then you work your way up. Well, I was 32 starting out as an apprentice. So that was a little humbling when I was working with guys that were more experienced than me, that were 19 and 20, so they were kind of showing me the ropes.
Right.
But nonetheless, it was a really good experience. And I mean, I learned a lot in that field, but I think more than anything, it made me appreciate, the life that I had on the racetrack that much more. Because I mean, when you grow up in it, and it's what your parents did, and it's all there's a lot of things you take for granted, and there was things that I took for granted. So I think stepping aside made me put those things into perspective, and I could see, man, I really do miss the horses. I miss the game. I miss so much about it. So it's really kind of driven that home for me, and shown me really who I am, more than anything. It took that for me to figure out who I was, because for a while I thought, well, I'm a jockey now, but I'll be something later. Well, now I know that this is my life, and this is what I want to do, and this is what I'm passionate about doing.
And I want to say, while you were taking that break mentally, did you tune into any races? Did you step foot on a racetrack? Like, were you completely just shut off from the racing world? Or were you still kind of, oh, this person is doing this? And what does that look like?
So I made it a rule that I wasn't going to watch a race or
Oh,
We lost him. There he is.
there you go.
I'm not hearing him. Can't hear him. He might have to go out and come back in.
Okay. Let me see.
Can't hear you. All right. So I removed him. He'll have to come back in.
Okay. I know that we've seen lately a lot of jockeys suffering with some mental health issues. And it's been really hard, but it's kind of been eye-opening to the rest of the world on how hard physically and mentally it can be. Okay.
You there, Lindey?
Can't hear you.
All right. Have him come out and come back in again.
Okay.
Well, that's what I was going to ask him too. Is I'm sure that break definitely had to give him a fresh, I think more people probably need a break. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay.
I
So
apologize.
you cut out when you said you made it a rule to not watch any racing, or?
Yeah, I didn't want to watch any racing, and I didn't want to really talk about racing with anyone. So I stepped aside completely at that point and tried to focus on what life looked like outside of the racetrack, because I'd never done that. I mean, ever since I was little, there was some sort of me that was involved in racing, whether it be my parents or myself. So so doing so, it was very difficult. I mean, because there's no doubt I wanted to check the results and watch replays and things like that. So it was very difficult, but I think it was best for me to kind of refresh me, in hindsight.
Yeah. That's my next thing. Like do you think it's what led you to, another great season? You come back, you show back up at Canterbury, everybody's like, oh my gosh, Lindy's back, and you have another great season. And then I know at the end of Canterbury, you started making some hard decisions to kind of move your tack to Remington. So you were back and forth, and, you had to end up taking off some winners at Canterbury because you had to show that, people in Oklahoma that you were serious about making that transition. So do you think like that mental break helped you move towards, like a better summer in Canterbury and then better decisions like down the road?
I would absolutely agree. I think the biggest thing that I needed to know was who I am. I think that the time solidified me knowing that this is who I am. This is just the path
Ha!
that was cut for me. So I pursued that. I feel like I jumped in with both feet. Moving forward and worked double hard to try and be the best that I could be and know that this is 100% who I am. So I think I made those decisions to be bold, to like you said, with the Minnesota, going back and forth between Remington and Minnesota and trying to double timing and stuff. I think I was passionate about it. I'm still passionate about it, and I just feel like I needed that refresher of who I am and not take those things for granted and just get it while the getting's good. So
Yeah.
that's kind of why I made those decisions.
Do you
And
think,
then
and I don't know how it's, sorry to interrupt, but I don't know how it's possible, but do you think it's something that almost every jockey needs every now and then? It's just that refresher? And I
I
don't know how
do.
it's possible with the business the way it is, but there's definitely seems to be somehow that needs to be worked in, correct?
I think so. I've always felt that, like, it doesn't matter where you're at or who you are. There's going to be one person, one trainer, owner that needs you somewhere, every single day or typically. So you've got to take that time. It's important, I think, to take that time personally and, prioritize that, make that a priority to refresh yourself a little bit. And that's another thing that it's taught me is that I need to redo that, to do that on a continual basis, and not let it be a one-time thing and get sour. I think it's something that I need to continually do.
Crafty Player here is asking, have you ever thought about riding in New York? Lane Losey is holding his own since his transition over there.
My buddy Lane. Yeah. So, I actually have some family that's from Maryland, and I've considered moving my tack up that way to be closer to family because um, I'm kind of on my own here in Oklahoma, around Texas and whatnot, and majority of my family's in Maryland, so it would be a lot closer to move up east. But I don't know if I can get on board with the weather, man. I can't handle that wintertime weather. I did Chicago, and that was tough enough, and then going any further east and north, that would be even more difficult. So
they say Maryland is a good place to raise a family because it's year-round racing. Plus, you're able to go to so many different places to ride and yet make it home for dinner per se. And the school system is amazing. But yeah, Maryland gets cold.
I've heard that. That's one thing that makes it enticing almost, is that, like, there's so many tracks within 2.5 hours of one another that you're going to stay busy. You know what I mean? And which that's like you would know, Betty, as a rider, it's important to stay busy. That's your only
Yeah.
chance at making money and winning races is the busier you are. The more opportunities you have, the better off you're going to do. So, that's always an enticing part of it. But I don't know, those winners, man. I don't know if I can get on board. I'm really happy though with this circuit. Since I've returned, I was telling someone the other day that I really like this circuit between Sam Houston in the wintertime where it's, it's fairly warm. Lone Star in the summertime, that's really warm. And then you get hit and miss weather here in Oklahoma during the fall, but more times than not, I feel like it's pretty fair.
And now you got an invite to go to Nebraska to ride at their new mile track as well.
I've heard about that. We'll have to see what the future holds.
I remember this fall I was looking up Emerald Downs, right? No, I was looking for a filly, and all of a sudden I'm running through the entries and I'm like, what? How did Lindey, what is he doing? And then I'm watching the race and they're doing an interview with you, and I texted you, I said, what are you doing? Like, I thought you were in Oklahoma. How did you end up all the way over there? So that's funny.
I have a buddy who he's with the partnership of Chad and Josh. They own some horses on the East Coast, or on the West Coast, and they also have some horses here with Steve Asmussen. But him and I became friends down in Houston. He had horses with Frank Lucarelli, and they shipped down there, and him and I kind of hit it off, and we didn't hang out a whole lot, but we hung out a few times there in Houston. And then, so he's from Washington, and he invited me over, and I was like, well, they weren't racing in Minnesota, or they hadn't started racing here in Oklahoma on Sundays, and they weren't racing in Minnesota on Sunday that week for some reason. So I was like, well, I have a Sunday that I could come race. I could come hang out. And he's like, well, that would be great, so he flew me over and kind of showed me around the town. And I had always heard that Emerald was a beautiful place to be. And so that was my first experience there. And I would agree. I mean, I kind of walked the backside a little bit when I got there. And those are some of the biggest barns I've seen. It was really impressive. Had I never been to the Pacific Northwest, and they say the West Coast is the best coast. So I was like, I've got to give this a little bit of a shot. So I went and kind of experienced it, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, I rented a car. I got to see, different areas. I went through Washington, Oregon. I got to get the full experience. So I was happy that I took the time to go up there and just pay that side of the country a visit.
I think that's really cool. I think that goes back to the taking that mental break and then kind of, making decisions for yourself. Like, you know what, I'm going to take this day and I'm going to, take a drive, like look at the country, because that's something that as riders, when you're grinding every single day, you don't get that. So it's nice that you took that time for yourself. I do want to talk to you more about kind of your Remington meet, like what's going on in Oklahoma. Your second leading rider, Stuart Elliott, obviously is leading rider. You go there, and do you think, you're traveling back and forth between Canterbury and Remington, and it looks like it's like obviously paying off. I know the races go off really late there, so I was like, I'm going to put, a couple bucks on Lindey on my account, and then I wake up, I'm like, man, he must have won. My account increased. But can you tell us why you think it's going so well? Because you're hat tricks, you're winning 2 races a night. Like, what is that? How do you think that's working out? Like, is your agent, or it's a new face? Like, all these people already?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's kind of a culmination of all of it. So I rode here for 10 years when I was on the Sam Houston Lone Star Remington circuit. And then I stepped away when I went to Minnesota, and I wasn't here for 2 years really. I was here for maybe a month back in 2021. But I think being back full time, people have really taken a liking to me, and I have to give credit to my agent too. Bubba Wood, he's done a really good job. He's got a lot of really good Oklahoma bred business, and he's putting me in the right spots, and that's important, being riding for the right people. And also Danny Caldwell. Caldwell has, he latched onto me, a couple weeks into the meet, and we've really done well together. And I think that's been very beneficial to my business. Because he's very good at at entering horses. I mean, he's been the leading owner here for years in a row, you know, so it's nice and it's refreshing to ride for someone like that. And I think people see that and they also jump on board. So it's all around a winning experience in my opinion. Um, and as you and I talked about, Betty, you know, I had the initial plans to go down to the fairgrounds, you know, around like the beginning of November, which was going to be new and different, you know, and I was trying to level up a little bit and get in kind of with the Kentucky guys, but this season here has just gone so well that I mean I couldn't leave it. I mean I couldn't walk away from it, and I'm glad I didn't, because once I made that decision, it seemed like that same week I think I had a 10 win week or something like that, you know, so it really just kind of solidified my decision, and I was really happy that I stayed. I mean, and you know, I'm hoping that I can build on this season moving forward to Sam Houston and Lone Star in the summer, depending on, you know, what happens with that, depending on the business stature and where that lies. It'll either be Lone Star for the summer or Canterbury for the summer as well. So I have options there.
Right. Because, like, right now at Remington, you're winning at 17%. You have 33 wins. It seems like Canterbury just ended and Remington just started, but if to rack up 33 wins so far is it's amazing. Like 17% is huge. And it seems like you're not just bringing home, you know, even money favorites. Like they're long shot. They're paying great money. Like Get Paid Ride Wade, you're getting your money back for sure as a bettor.
You know, I've been fortunate. I mean, it seems like the last couple of weeks I've ridden more short price horses than the beginning. But it seemed like the beginning of the meet I was winning on 20 to 1s, 30 to 1s. And I think I had a 43 to 1 shot winner, you know, at the beginning of the meet. So I mean, I think that really helps, and people see that. And then, you know, then they'll put you on, you know, then I'll get the opportunities on the better ones from that point. But I think I had to, not so say prove myself, but I was fortunate enough to have those long shot winners early, and it kind of opened some eyes.
Yeah, not only that, like it's not an easy circuit. You're riding against some great seasoned riders that are, you know, have been there for years. Like Leandro, he's been there for quite some time. He's a great rider. You know, the list goes on, like Stuart Elliott, Floyd Wethy, like, you know, Harry Hernandez made the transfer over from Canterbury to Oklahoma. Jermaine from Canterbury over there. You know, you're riding against really great seasoned riders. So to come out, you know, second leading rider is pretty darn good.
I'll agree. I mean, I think you're exactly right, Betty. There's a lot of guys here that are capable. I mean, they are very seasoned and know how to get to the winner circle, you know. So I'm grateful for the success I've had thus far at the meet. Hopefully we can continue that till the close. You know, December 15th is when we end. So my goal at this point is we're at 33 now. We've got 5 weeks left. I'd love to get to 50, 55 would be ideal. You know, to me, being leading rider would be great, but to me, it's about the percentage, you know, keeping the percentage high and just being successful at a high percentage and eliminating the mistakes. You know, that's key to me.
I know last time you were on, we talked about Shinny the horse, but we have a comment here. If you could touch on that again. I know a lot of fans love that horse as much as you did.
Yeah. So Shinny, I got to ride him again in 2022 when I returned to Minnesota from my injury, and I think we went 5 in a row there. You know, 2021 was our big year. He ended up the winningest horse in America. I think he had 13 wins total, and I was on 12 of them. And I from there in 2022 I got to ride him again in Minnesota, and we won 5 in a row. I think at that point at the end of the season in Minnesota he suffered I think it was a small foot injury. So they had to give him a little time. They gave him one more race in Minnesota, and I think he finished 4th. That was just kind of a return trip. Then we got to go back to Arizona, where it's where it all started for him, back in 2021. And he started off and had success the first couple times, and then just got to the point to where he had to step up in company and tougher races and things like that. But man, that horse just holds a place in my heart. He had so much personality, I mean, he just like you could read him by his ears. He was so intelligent. He was one of those horses that almost seemed like he was smarter than we were, and I think sometimes that's why he would win. I don't know if you guys ever noticed, but he would never win by long distances. He was always about winning, just doing enough to get there. It was like, don't worry, I got you, and I'm going to get there. Just don't worry about it, So that was really cool experience, and really cool horse to be a part of, for sure.
And he was a smaller type horse, wasn't he? He was
Yes,
kind of short coupled. He was tiny.
He was. He almost looked like a little pack mule, to be honest. Like, he was kind of short and kind of stocky. And when you look at him, and he'd always walk around like with his ears pinned. And he wasn't much of a looker. He didn't have, this big, fabulous looking body or anything like this, but he definitely proved it on the racetrack.
Right. I think I remember seeing
dirt and turf too.
Yeah. I personally think he was better on turf, because I don't think he loved getting hit with the dirt in the face, so that would kind of deter him a little bit. And so, like, when he was on the turf, I felt like I'd have more confidence in him because I didn't have to put him in places like because there was never going to be any dirt hitting him, so I could just let him take me. So I felt like I had more confidence riding him on the turf than I did on the dirt, definitely.
Another good horse that I'd like to touch on that you rode this summer at Canterbury is Bodenheimer, because he's back in the entry box. You're going to ride him back at Remington. Can you tell us a bit about Bodenheimer, how how he played out this summer, and then he takes you to Kentucky twice. At Churchill, he ran a 108 speed figure. I think ran the race of his life, and then comes back at Keeneland. Not that he aired, it's tougher company, you know what I mean? He ended up in a way tougher race, but now he's back in the entry box. Can you tell us a little bit about Bodenheimer?
So he was, I actually got on him this spring at Turf Paradise this past spring. And he was not actually, excuse me, it was last fall. It was back in like November, before I stopped riding, of 2022. And I was working him, and he was working lights out, and I didn't know much about him. And then I come to find out that he had a really good past performances. I mean, he ran in the Breeders' Cup when he was young and things like that. But we couldn't figure him out. Then we finally figured out that he wasn't breathing well. That was his biggest problem. He's a fast horse, and when you're fast and you don't breathe, when your air shuts down, you're gonna stop. And when they finally got the breathing figured out, I mean, this horse just became a completely different horse in Minnesota this summer. I mean, I felt like there wasn't a horse on the backside that could beat him this summer. Going 5 furlongs on the turf, he was unstoppable. I mean, he proved that, throughout the summer. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, he came here and ran. I say unfortunately, I missed out on that winter because I was in Minnesota.
Leandro went on him.
Yeah, I was actually named on him, but it was one day where we rescheduled in Minnesota. So I had, and I was committed to like 7 or 8 there. And I was only named on 2 or 3 here, so I decided to stay there, which was beneficial because I ended up picking up the Midnight Current that day. So that was okay, but it was almost like a tough pill to swallow, knowing that he won without me here at Remington. But I was fortunate that Valerie gave me another opportunity on him, when he went to Kentucky and ran at Churchill. And man, I think that was an incredible experience for the both of us, because he ran lights out that day.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely laid it all out on the line and ran his heart out for me. And that was my first time ever riding at Churchill, and that's to me, that's the big leagues, you know. I mean, and he ran really hard, and I felt like I rode really well, so I was really confident in him. And I was, I was proud of him for that effort that he put in, even in defeat. I mean, to get beat a nose ahead, whatever you want to call it. I mean,
Yeah.
he ran all the way to the wire for me as hard as he could. And then we came back at Keeneland, and it was unfortunate that it rained all that day, and the turf was really soft. And we drew the one hole, so we had to use to get out of there, to make the lead. And I think if I remember correctly, we went 21 flat for the first quarter on a soft going. So that means you're moving, you know what I mean, to make the lead. So by the time we hit the top of the stretch, he was cooked, and also the turf was playing outside closers as well. So it was, it was unfortunate that things didn't go our way that day. But
Right.
I mean, this guy, he really opened my eyes. I mean, from not knowing what to expect from him, for him to end up winning. I think he went 4 in a row at Canterbury, and then the 5th one at Remington. For him, 5 in a row, and then to run that huge second at Churchill. I mean, he's definitely come back around. That's for sure.
Yeah, and now he's back in the entry box. He runs on the 11th this month, so in a few days. I guess I want to talk about too, since it seems like you've had success with a lot of these older horses and them running back to back, like winning races. For instance, Eisenstadt this summer, just because he's one of my favorite horses. He's an old man. You win on him 2 in a row, the same as like you have this horse that you just win on for the second time, Campfire Creed. Do you kind of know, like, how is that? It's tough to win 2 in a row. You've had Shinny, now you have Bodenheimer, Eisenstadt, this Campfire Creed. Like, I mean, what is it?
I think with my age, actually, and riding, now that I've ridden enough, I think that knowing the horses more, I think it puts more confidence in myself, to know like what I have under me, and it's something that I don't think I appreciated, when I was a younger rider, is riding horses back to back and having that experience on them. But I think now as an older rider, I know their tendencies and kind of what they're, what I have under me, and what they do and don't like. So I think that I've taken that and kind of played that to its advantage. So I think that's why I've had kind of repeat winners on those guys. Plus those names that you said are great horses. I mean, all of them in their own right. I mean, they've all proven themselves to me.
Right. Do you think you're more patient now? Because you've always been a patient rider, but you think like you're kind of like, okay, I'll wait for you young guys to, mess up, and then here I am.
I think so. I would agree. I mean, I think that I think my patience has gone to a new level ever since I came back. And I think the more that you win, it seems like the more patient you are. So I think it's kind of a snowball effect in the right direction, I mean, and, in Minnesota, I mean, the season went pretty well. And, that's where coming back and having success right away was key, to help my patience and my confidence level and things like that. So I think that that initial season helped me tremendously moving forward.
Grandma Horse Racing asked if you're in OKC, you got to try Florence Restaurant and the Yam Fried Chicken.
The Yam Fried Chicken, Florence Restaurant. I'll have to keep that in mind. I actually came to the Toby Keith restaurant tonight for my first time, and I had to pay him a little respect. I mean, he's been putting me on some winners, so I said, well, you know what, I'll try his spot for dinner tonight. So
I hope you got it comped.
I walked in and they were packed. I was like, hang on a second, I gotta make a phone call.
I guess also too, in this coming week, you have 22 mounts at Remington, a couple 2-year-old stakes, One's an Oklahoma bred, so like a state bred stake going on mile. There's another one that's kind of wide open. Um, do you like any of these horses for our YouTubers or anybody listening in? If you have any tips, hot tips.
I think, I always feel like the state bred races are wide open. So
Okay.
I always feel that I'm live in there. I always go into it looking at it that way. And I put my best foot forward, and I'm hoping the horses do the same. But to be honest, I don't really study the races until the day of, so
Okay.
I don't really look them over. I kind of just take it day by day. So come the day of the race is when I'll know more about it. But I mean, like I said, knowing that there's some state bred races, and I feel like always around here in Oklahoma, they're wide open. You just never know what to expect. Like on Classics night and things like that, you'll always get quite a few long shot winners because they'll just come in and surprise you. You'll think that you have horses that are going to just run away with it, but it turns out that the long shots come in a lot of the time.
Yeah, I was watching Classic Night and I actually know Richard Bracho and he won on a huge long shot and I was like, man, I should have bet him. I had the connection and I just didn't even think about it. But yeah, long shots on those big days is always nice, especially if you're a bettor.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's one thing I do love about Oklahoma is seems like they tend to get bigger fields, so you get more opportunity. More betting chances, things like that, and I think that's key for this game.
For sure. Maybe one more thing. Can you tell us maybe one of your favorite horses that you've ridden in a race or had the opportunity to ride, maybe just in the mornings or kind of some but not I mean, we've obviously talked about some of your nicer horses, but maybe somebody else comes to mind.
So actually, this Campfire Creed that I'm currently riding, so I just got on him here recently, but I mean, when you get on a lot of horses, you learn their ways and things like that. And this guy's got a lot of ability. I've won two in a row on him, one going short, one going long, and he's proven himself at both distances, beating good horses. Um, but what I love about him and what comes to mind is just how mellow he is. Like he's one of those horses. Literally, you just think that it's almost like you want to wake him up because you feel like he's asleep. Like all the time, he just doesn't turn a hair wrong. He behaves perfectly. And then you put him out there on the racetrack, and he's a completely different animal. And to me, those are few and far between. I
Yeah.
mean, the horses that just seem like they're just deadhead, so to say, but when you put them on the racetrack, they're completely different animals. So for that fact, I really have enjoyed riding him. Because you'll go to the barn and just play with him, and he'll let you just play with him in his stall and just hang his head there, and he's just so cool. But like I said, when you get him on the racetrack, he just turns on the afterburners.
Yeah, I've been on a couple of those and I'm like, oh my gosh, you start getting nervous because you're like, are they sick? What's wrong with them? They're so quiet. And then all of a sudden, like for breezing purposes, all of a sudden I get to like the quarter pole and they're like straight monsters. And I said, oh yeah, there you are. Like now you know what you're doing.
Yeah, the first time I ever sat on him, actually, they were like, well, we want to. The track here is kind of heavy and kind of slower in the mornings. I mean, if you work a 5 furlongs and maybe like a 102, you're doing pretty well, So they're like, we want you to work 5 furlongs in like a minute, a minute 101. I'm thinking, man, that's kind of hard on this track. And it was after break, so it's dry, things like that. So there's a lot of variables that play into it. And I go out there, and he's just a horse. You'll know, Betty, the horses that feel like they're going really slow, but they're really moving. That's the good ones. And I went out there and worked him, and I was like, man, I mean, I felt like he did okay. I felt like he maybe went 103, 102 and change possibly. And I pulled up the work tab when I got home, and he went a minute flat. So I'm like, man, that just goes to show you, because my clock typically is pretty good, but this guy was just, he had me fooled. It felt like he was going nowhere, but he was really covering some ground. So that was really cool to experience that, because I mean, when you go out there on a horse who's deadhead, you're like, well, I'm gonna have to push him around there the whole way and make him do it. But yeah, he proved me wrong. That's for sure.
Just to piggyback off of that, I remember my first winter in Ocala. I was working for Mark Cassie, and he had Stirwins, and he was really quiet, just a nice horse. Eugene Melnick owned him. And they said, Betty, go and work him. Make sure he works really good. He's leaving in a few days, going to Barbados to run in the Barbados World Cup. And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. Had no idea what type of horse I was sitting on. And I was like, work good. What does that mean? Very young, naive. Oh my gosh, the horse worked in like 58. And they said, well, I don't think we're going to publish it. We were on the all-weather surface, so we were flying. I had no idea that we were going quite that fast. I was still very young. I don't think I'd rode a race yet. And he was kind of just floating around along there. And so that was my first like real nice horse to ride. Had no clue.
I had an experience similar like that on all weather. Like you said, at Arlington, I had a horse that, it was a nice filly that I had won some stakes on. Her name was Nix. Back in, I think 2007, 2008, when I was first starting, so I was still young, and it was my first experience really working horses on the all weather. And she's one of the first ones I worked. And they're like, whatever you do, don't let her work any faster than a minute. I'm like, okay, well, she worked down there in 58 and change, and that was the last time I sat on her, unfortunately. So, yeah, I caught some trouble for that one. But, yeah, no, that all-weather can definitely get you in some trouble, because they get over it so easily,
Yeah.
They don't have to work at all to get over it.
Yeah, I think I got benched for about a week. Mark's like, I think you need to take a little time out. I said, oh, okay. Sounds
Get
good.
your
I'll
clock
learn from
together.
my mistake.
Yep, that's what you have to do. That's it.
He did go over and he did win. So I didn't mess up that bad. He didn't phase him too much working that fast. So he went over, he won. And that's like the infamous picture that went around Facebook of Patrick Husbands. Before he got to the wire, he kind of reaches over and pats the other jockey on the helmet. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Oh, wow, I have not.
Big gray horse, and he reaches over. I'll have to find it. It's a kind of a classic photo, but Patrick basically is like the king in Barbados, and he should be. He's a great rider, but yeah, he still wins. So I don't. Anything else, Sean?
Well, I guess my last question is, so far all your career decisions have really worked out. I mean, even retirement, it didn't work out, but it did work out because it gave you a new lease. So what do you see yourself in the next, what's your next big career move, do you think? Where do you see yourself?
That's a tough one. I mean, I do feel like I'm to the age now where I'm done chasing. I feel like I'm ready to kind of settle in somewhere, and I mean, I think more than anything, to be honest, I wanna settle in somewhere, find my place, start a family, things like that. Take that next step. I'm ready for that. I think I've proven to myself that I can win races, and I'm not really chasing that anymore. Although I love winning. I mean, that's what we live for, I mean, but I'm ready to kind of spread my wings a little bit, and do that thing, do the settle down a little bit, and figure that part of life out a little bit, while still pursuing my career, just in one location, rather than kind of chasing the next best thing, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nothing beats starting a family.
Guys, can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that.
So from here, then you take some time off. You said December 15th, and then you head to Sam Houston. Same agent or new agent? Does he follow that circuit as well, or?
It's going to be the same agent. He actually goes down there. and he's got a lot of Oklahoma business. So probably the middle towards the end of Sam Houston. We've discussed kind of shipping over to Will Rogers because he's got a lot of Oklahoma business. So we'll be going back and forth between Will Rogers and Sam Houston once the season's coming to an end there in Sam Houston. And Will Rogers will kind of overlap Lone Star as well. But they, just like Sam Houston, they'll run different days than Sam Houston and Lone Star Park. So we'll be able to kind of double dip for a little bit. And hopefully have good business at both places. If that ends up being the plan moving forward.
And what does that commute look like from one to the other? Do you know?
I think Sam Houston to Will Rogers is like 6.5 hours.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's not terrible. I mean, to do on a, to go there for 3 days in a row or 2 days in a row, between like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's not terrible. And you can work horses and ride races and then head back to either, for instance, Houston or Lone Star Park. So that's kind of what the winter and the summer look like moving forward. But we'll, you know how this game is. You'll just have to see where it all takes you.
Yeah. Ride the wave.
That's it. Just take it and run with it and hope for the best. That's that's the name of the game.
As long as you get to go home at night, you're doing well.
You're exactly right.
Awesome. Well, Lindey, it was great having you. We want to wish you good luck. Although I don't know if you need any more luck because you've been kicking butt.
I'll always take the luck. If they're giving it, I'm taking it.
Yeah, you've been doing really well, and we just we see it all over social media, and we love it. We want to thank you for taking your time out of your day for doing this interview. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I mean, I love doing anything that's going to promote the sport, and I'm glad we were able to do this. I love kind of sharing my knowledge and telling my story. So I really appreciate you guys.
Absolutely, and we'll definitely have you back too.
Of course, yeah.
All right, that sounds good, guys. You guys take care. Thank you so much again.
All right, Lindey, enjoy your evening.
All right, guys, you do the same. Bye-bye, guys.
Thanks. Okay, bye.
All right.
Okay.
As always, he's excellent, and I'm glad everything's working out for him really well.
Yeah, it seems like taking that mental break really kind of set forward kind of a new foot back into horse racing. I think, all riders, if they have the opportunity to take some time to themselves, or if they are struggling, reach out to a friend or somebody they can confide in. That would be great.
So Grandma Horse Racing, one of our biggest fans, asking, are you from Texas?
Grandma Horse Racing, I actually am originally from Canada, Ontario. I spend my winters here in Ocala, Florida. And then my summers are spent in Shakopee, Minnesota at Canterbury Park. So here in Ocala, Florida for the winter right now, my husband and I own our house here. And then back to Canterbury in the summers.
Nice.
Stay busy. We try to stay really busy. And with kids, you're even busier.
Oh, yeah. How many kids you got?
We have three boys, 15, 12, and 8. So we have some teenagers, pre-teenagers, kind of permits, driving, which has been a new thing, trying to get used to.
You got it all going on.
Yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking. I think when I was that age, I was a better driver, but I also think that I was probably driving before I was 15, so that helps a lot. But it's, a lot.
I'd imagine. All right, so tomorrow I don't have a guest scheduled yet. If we do get a guest, Jamie and I will be here. If not, we will be here Wednesday with jockey Felipe Valdez. We just did a story on him, actually. Aubrey Green just wrote a story on him. He was retired. He was another one. He was retired for years, and he's come back, and he's starting to win a lot. So we'll have him on the show Wednesday, and we'll go over the article and more about his career.
That sounds great. I can't wait to tune in and watch.
And then tomorrow the guys will be back for the pick show too. They'll be doing parts because tomorrow's Tuesday. Follow, like, subscribe to all the things on the bottom there at Horse Race Today, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it. Subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching, just give the thumbs up. It helps us. Doesn't cost you a thing and helps us a ton. And what'd you think about the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, so love watching all of those big horses come into town, fly over from the UK, and just great horse racing. I actually did an interview with Niall Brennan, who broke and trained Hard to Justify, who ended up winning. Just a great filly, great 2-year-old, but not taking away from any of the other runners. It was a very evenly matched race. Just some great fillies, great colts, and then obviously the older horses. Just amazing, just great horse racing, all in all. Just want to send my condolences out to Cody, his family, Cody's wish, just heartbreaking to see after such a, monumental moment that he passes. So everybody involved with him and the horse, just sending my thoughts and prayers. A tough way to wake up this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Not the news we wanted to hear at all. And it was a great story, both Cody Wish and Cody Dorman and the family, everything involved just all came together.
Yeah.
Not the news you wanted this morning. Pretty amazing that it happened right after Cody's Wish last race.
Yeah, it's
make of that what you will, just fate right there.
Agreed.
And to go back on what you said about Justify too, Justify had a great weekend.
Yeah. His
definitely doing well.
They're stepping up. It's nice to see. He was such a great horse. So nice to see his babies carrying on his name, and I loved the just FYI. I thought that was a great name, and then obviously to seal the deal, the way that race, panned out was really cool too. So 2-year-old day was amazing. Future stars of,
That horse is great looking, just the length, how she runs. And, it's sad, and I'll admit, it took me a while to, somebody had to point out that just FYI was the play on words. I didn't realize that it worked out like it did.
Yeah. I'm like, I said to my husband, I'm like, do you see this? Are you looking? It says just FYI. And he's like, oh yeah, I do see it. And I had to look at it a few times for myself to kind of catch on.
Yep.
And I was like, this is great. And I think the owner actually named the horse. So he's like, I think he said he was just sitting at home one evening and was kind of going over some names, and that one came to mind and they rolled with it. So I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, and that horse did look great all week leading up to the Breeders' Cup, and then did well there. So we'll see what kind of future she has. She looks really good.
Yeah, she looks phenomenal. I can't wait to see these 2-year-olds come 3-year-olds and what that looks like for them. I'm a big 2-year-old person. I love watching them run. Just amazing athletes.
Absolutely. So on that, you did great in debut.
Thank you.
Nice having Lindey. We'll work together here in the future as well, and I look forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you. How does it go?
We'll see you in the winner's circle.
We'll see you in the winner's circle. All right.